But I want to get to our parliamentary reporter, Bulelani Philips, first, just to give us an overall of the testimony that we heard today. Bulelani, very good afternoon to you. Quite explosive revelations there by Cat Matlala, particularly towards the second part of his testimony after lunch. Just break it down for us in terms of just the allegations that he's making, for one, against former Police Minister Bheki and the relationship that they had, and also saying that, yes, in fact, the former Minister Bheki lied under oath.
Good afternoon to you, Unati, and to the viewers at home. Of course, Cat Matlala is beginning to get into the meat of his affidavit, and of course quite explosive testimony, particularly against the former police minister Bheki. Now I would want to pause there for a moment and first maybe go back a little bit in terms of the testimony that was put forward by the former police minister Bheki when he came before the Hoc Committee. Now the minister did testify that whilst he was still having engagements with Mr. Matlala, according to Bheki, had told Bheki that embattled police minister Senzo Mchunu was having ANC presidential ambitions, and Cele had actually indicated that Matlala should stay close to the associate of Minister Mchunu, Brown Mokgotsi, to ensure that he gets as much information as possible about this alleged plot to become the ANC's next president. Now, fast forward to today, and Mr. Matlala is actually rebutting that kind of testimony. And when he was asked whether did Minister Bheki lied when he said that he got the information that Mchunu wanted to be the ANC's president, quite frankly, Mr. Matlala says Mr. Cele lied. So those two kinds of conflicting statements, the committee will have to get to the bottom of who is actually talking the truth. But also, in the testimony that is being laid by Mr. Matlala, what's significant about it is that, Mr. Matlala had gone to Durban around the 23rd of December last year, where he had a meeting with Cele, and Cele had actually made an intervention for Mr. Matlala to get belongings that were seized from his home during a raid on 6 December that year, as well as on 18 December. And Cele's intervention led to Mr. Matlala getting his belongings back. So in the subsequent months, Mr. Matlala says that Mr. Cele had started making advances of wanting a payback from Mr. Matlala, and the transactions to the tune of $500,000 rand were actually given to Mr. Cele, and those were done in cash, I guess maybe to conceal those transactions that they cannot be traced by the banks. And Mr. Cele, again, after those two transactions were made by Mr. Matlala said he had got another call from Mr. Cele, who complained about his car and that of his wife's that were broken down, and he needed more money. But when Mr. Matlala drove to Durban, he decided that this kind of trend would actually become a consistent thing, and then he decided to stop taking calls of Mr. Cele, which led to some of the missed calls that have been reported quite widely in the media. So those are the kind of explosive evidence that we've had so far, Unati.
So, Bulelani, of course, it was the first part and a huge chunk of his statement that was taken. So what are we likely to expect then tomorrow? So the ad hoc committee begins at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
There's various themes that the evidence leaders will explore. Amongst those, as much as they have actually dealt with the issue of that cancelled contract, the 360 million rand health risk tender that was cancelled for a company that belonged to Mr. Matlala, I think they need to tease out in terms of how did that happen, and whether there were any ulterior motives that were actually embarked upon in cancelling that contract. Because because as you've heard in the testimony of Mr. Matlala, he says that it's no coincidence that, whilst he was still trying to fight for this contract to be, not cancelled, he found himself being harassed by the political killing stars team, and also he found himself being arrested. So he says that he makes a linkage that whilst he was still trying to fight for this contract to remain in effect, but he found himself being targeted for that. So those are the kinds of issues that perhaps maybe the evidence leaders have put aside and may revisit later on. But also the other issue that the evidence leaders may explore tomorrow is the issue of the fitting of blue lights on the vehicles of Mr. Matlala in Ekurhuleni. The other theme that will be explored is that, when General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi came before the ad hoc committee, he said that the crime intelligence had identified Mr. Matlala as one of the criminal cartels that they've identified operating in the country. Of course, in his affidavit, he does dispute that, so he would have to explain to himself, or rather to the committee, as to why he should actually, why should the committee actually discard the evidence of Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. So the evidence leaders quite clear that they will take up about 2 hours of tomorrow morning before the members of parliament actually take over and cross-question Mr. Matlala after the evidence leaders have done. Unathi.
Looking forward to that. Well, thank you so much, Bulelani, for that. Parliamentary reporter Bulelani Philips there for us, of course, reporting live for us outside the Kgosi Mampuru prison correctional facility in Pretoria.